Okay. This is the point where I almost always take off my shoes. And so I was telling Lisa last night and Paige at dinner that for years and years and years and years and years, I would try to find the most comfortable little ballet flats so I would look at least cute on my feet. But then I couldn't find anything comfortable over the years. And so early on, I started taking my shoes off, and I just tell people, and it's not because I'm from Mississippi. So when I shared that in the Diocese of Mississippi last week, they didn't laugh as much as I did. All right, so what we're going to do is this. Just look at we're going to open up your booklet. And the very first 2 pages are just real high-level questions. So this is kind of for your leadership. A lot of this is for the churches that are not familiar at all with Invite, Welcome, Connect. And so I have them just look at the high level. Then go to the next page and the next page. The next 4 pages is what we're getting ready to go through. Okay? And then I'm going to give you some instructions. We're going to go through this pretty quickly. And this is from years and years of kind of pulling things together. So first, wait.
Is this where you want?
No, let's see here. It's the...
Page 4?
Yeah, I don't have my page numbers in front of me. It would be, invite. There we go. Invite. There you go. All right, here we go. All right, so this very first video, it was at my very last, I gave up being director of the Gathering of Leaders in 2017 when I went with the School of Theology in Sewanee. So one of our young priests, we were out at a retreat center south of Seattle, and we were overlooking the Puget Sound, and Phil Duvall came up to me and he said, I have a story to share you about how I came to be in the Episcopal Church. And so I want you to listen to what Phil has to say.
Hi, my name is Phil Duvall. I am
Sorry, y'all.
We're in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we are here.
Let's see. We have this, we got this Bluetooth thing going on here. Which one?
There.
Which one?
Right there. And then it's the UNBT.
That one?
Yeah. There you go.
All right, are we on? The Bluetooth has a mind of its own. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Phil Duvall. I am currently serving as Rector of Church of the Redeemer in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we are here in Seattle for a Gathering of Leaders retreat.
So Phil, tell me, how were you invited to the Episcopal Church?
I was invited to the Episcopal Church by someone at a farmer's market, actually. I went to a farmer's market on a Sunday, and I had been going to church at the church I grew up in, but I didn't really feel connected to it anymore. But I was taking my grandma and sort of trying to figure out if there was a place for me in church. I had left church for many years. I was outside of church and was one of the spiritual but not religious people. How I definitely described myself that way for about 7 years. But I realized I wanted to be part of a church community, and I didn't know what it would look like or who it would be or what kind of place it would be. So I was really sort of nervous about how you'd even start that. So of course, instead of going to that church on Sunday, I went to the farmer's market. And I was with a friend, and he ran into one of his friends, and we were all talking. And this was in California, in Los Angeles, and I let slip that, I was supposed to take my grandma to church, but instead I went to the farmer's market. And this person said that she was going to go to church, but she ended up going to the farmer's market that Sunday, which I guess that's the bad part of the story because none of us were in church. But nevertheless, but what was cool was I said, oh, what kind of church do you go to? And she said, an Episcopal church. And I said, oh, I've heard a little bit about you guys. Like, that could be interesting. And she said, I never do this. I don't usually do this. But we're starting this class next week at the church on Wednesday nights, and it's like a dinner, and you come, and then we ask these sort of basic questions about Christianity, and we talk, and it's a free meal. And I was poor, and I was like, free meal sounds great. So I said, well, that could be a thing I do, and so I said, she convinced me to go. I should jump forward and say that like this isn't like the woman I married. And
Right.
It didn't become like, it wasn't a date.
So here's the question, were you
but
welcome when you went?
I went and they were so kind to me. They were very kind to me, and they made sure that I was at the table with the one person I knew, and I made all the friends that I'm still friends with. I made friends with that first program, and
Wow. So
and,
you were invited, you were welcome.
I was invited. I was welcomed. The connecting is a different story, and I think that
We'll make
there's.
that another video.
Yeah, and that would be the place where I would go back to them and say, let's talk about how you did connecting, because I had to be really persistent.
Yeah.
But the inviting was real, and I think what was real about it was they didn't she loved something about her community.
Yeah.
And so when we started talking about church, it was natural for her to say, oh, you should be a part of this thing, even though it was kind of embarrassing for her and hard for her.
Yeah.
She was compelled to because she had a sense of pride and love for the place where she was. And so invitation was natural in that sense, even though it might have been difficult. It was natural, and it felt like the right thing to do for her. So, and I wouldn't be anything that I am if not for her inviting me to that church at the farmer's market that Sunday.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Phil.
You're welcome.
All right, so if you look at the checklist, the very first thing that I've got, it's divided into three big, on those first 2 pages, inviting, then community, and then communication, all right? So under inviting, I've got, the very first thing I have is physical tools for invitation are provided to members. And if you flip over the page, and you'll see under ideas and resources some of the things that I came up with. So small business cards. All right, so for years, we used Vistaprint, but I didn't want to recommend a particular company. And then one of my young priests came up with an idea of using a company out of England called moo.com, M-O-O.com. So that's where these came from. Because the thing I like about Moo, and when you get a chance, I only have 3 of these left. I mean, I ordered thousands of these over the years, little bitty ones. Because the thing about Moo is that you could order 50 different cards that have 50 different photos on them, on the front, with little information on the back. So when I started using this and talking about, give your parishioners something that they could hand out. So I'm going to have these up here when it's time to creative time, because I only have a few. You're welcome to come look at them. But so these are from all around the church, ways that people use the cards and put information on the back. One of the young priests in Houston, I'll never forget, she says, Mary, this is sexy evangelism. And I said, give me another word, Kristen. She said, it's non-threatening evangelism. And so cards, just some sort of cards. When I went to Sewanee, the youth Invite, Welcome, Connect, the college Invite, Welcome, Connect team had these made, and I have one of these left from Sewanee, or a couple of them. And they had these printed up, so they took the stained glass window at the back of the chapel, and then they made these little cards that they could hand out to their fellow students, and welcoming them and inviting them to chapel at the school. And so through the years, I think I mentioned maybe 3 years ago, I was invited to Akron, Ohio to bring the ministry to the Lutheran Church. So this Lutheran church just went all out. I think they had these, they didn't use Moo, but they had a company that printed them so that they could give these. So if you see, all of theirs are different, and it got on the back of it. And so that way, you're giving parishioners a little something that when they're inviting someone to their church, but you can also use these in other ways and have them, for people when they come to visit here for whatever reason. These are cards that were sent out by St. David's many, many years ago in Austin, and they sent out like 20,000 postcards, which I love the images, I love what they say. And so when I started doing this work, I said, well, did you get any parishioners from this? They had no clue. I said, well, you could use those postcards to have something, to give people to hand out rather than sending them in direct mail. And then there's the Episcopal Shield, and you don't think about the Episcopal Shield being an evangelism tool, but I have a girlfriend who actually found her husband this way. So she was getting gas at a Buc-ee's. If you don't know what Buc-ee's is, it's a humongous gas station in Texas. And she pulls up, and there was a car in front of her that had an Episcopal Shield on it. And she walked up to him and she said, "Are you Episcopalian?" He said, "I am." She said, "We have a great little church right here in Comfort." And she said, she invited him to church. So a couple of weeks later, he came to church. Then they became friends. Then they fell in love. And then he had to go somewhere else for a while because she was the rector. And that would have been, and David, you know her. That was Carol Petty. And Carol Petty. And so she became actually the safe church minister for the Diocese of Texas. So at the end of 2017, I was on my way back to Sewanee from visiting my family in Mississippi, and I was at this little Chevron station there at Brookhaven on I-55, and I got out of my car, and I wanted to put some polish in the trunk, and I stepped over the gas hose and tripped on my ballet flats that I had on and went crashing to the ground. And I broke my right ankle pretty badly and had to have surgery. So they put me in they got me back up to Sewanee, and they had a cast, and then I had to wear a boot for a while as I was flying. So on one of my trips, I was flying out of Nashville with the boot, and I had to get helped on the plane. This is a Delta flight, and they would put me in the bulkhead. This flight attendant says, "You're Episcopalian." I went, "How does she know that?" And I had a canvas bag with the shield on it. She comes over to me once the flight, it was not a long flight, from Nashville over to Atlanta, and she comes and she's standing in the bulkhead telling everybody around, she's evangelizing, telling everybody around how she's Episcopalian, involved with happening, and just involved at her church, All Saints in Atlanta. So the Episcopal Shield, and you can find various ways to use the Episcopal Shield. And then I've got the other things on here are like QR codes, and a lot of our churches now are using QR codes in both their bulletins. And so here are some pictures from various churches that are using them. And then if you look at the list, it says education and training. Classes and teaching resources are provided. If you flip over to the tools, I've got the very first thing on there on the ideas and resources is offer technology classes in e-media. If you've got any youth, have them teach people like me, how to use e-media, and just offer that. And then I've got sharing faith dinners and other evangelism ways to get the word out about how to help Episcopalians with evangelism. This particular quote is in the book. It came from Bishop Curry. Evangelism is sharing the faith that is in you and listening and learning from the faith that's in someone else. It's not just about you talking. It's about listening and sharing. It's a relationship where God can get in the midst. And so I have something called Sharing Faith cards. And these can be downloaded from our website, Invite Welcome Connect website, under the toolkit. And these are on your table. So at each of your tables, there will be 3 of these. And there's a set of 50 of these Sharing Faith cards. And they're just ways, if you'll look at them, on the back of each card is a different question. So you can use these in various groups in your church. One of the recommendations was have a dinner party and have the questions that you can ask. And it's just trying a way, like on one of these, this one I have, it says, how would you describe your journey of faith? Because we want to be able to help each other how to share our faith story, and it's really important that we give tools for that. And then the last thing under inviting is church offers numerous creative ways of invitation to the local community, intentionally connecting these activities with information about your church. In the book I talk about St. Francis Episcopal Church there in Houston was one of my pilot churches, and they had a big art show every year, and thousands of people came, but they didn't have any information about their church there. And so if you're going to have a venue, if your church is a venue for whatever, then be sure that you have something about your church that you can pick up, and so they'll have a better understanding of the faith tradition. And I've got creative ways to invite your local community. And if you look at this list, there are tons of them on this list of the ideas and resources, starting out with Ashes to Go. Because a lot of times, it's easier to invite someone to an outside activity or some sort of activity that you're doing. It's easier to invite them to something like this rather than it is to invite them to the first worship service. So this Ashes to Go started years ago. And one of the stories I tell is one of the rectors at a church down in Galveston wanted to try it. Well, her curate really wanted her to try it. So she told the parishioners, this is not for you, on Ash Wednesday, that we're going to put signs out on the Galveston seawall. So they did. and they put the signs out that they were going to have ashes for people that would come there. And so they did. And at the end of the morning, Susan said a bus pulls up, and it was the head injury center there in Galveston. And Susan and her curate got on this bus and gave every one of those people ashes. And it was filled with people that were strapped into their seat. And she said it had such an impact on her that she decided to do it the next year. The next year, this little African-American woman walked up to her and said, you gave me ashes last year. And Susan said, I remember you. And she said, would you baptize me now? And so Ashes to Go is just one thing that is something outside that you might consider. The other one is Laundry Love, and I don't know if y'all have heard of it, but you're going to hear Jimmy Bart's kind of started something called Laundry Love out in California. So listen to what Jimmy has to say about Laundry Love. We'll go back.
Laundry Love is really the modern day.
Sorry, y'all. It's just going back and forth. Which one is it? It's on there now?
Laundry Love is really the modern day foot washing. Laundry Love is basically a group of people who gather together once a month in a laundromat to facilitate the laundry of folks who are homeless or in need or in transitional housing, folks who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to have their laundry done. We literally are doing the maximum of 600 loads of laundry each month. Not only does it benefit this community of people, but it also takes the worst day for a small business owner and turns it into his or her best day. That was formed in order for the church to reach out to a group of folks who would never otherwise darken the door of one of our traditional parishes. We have had a few guests from Laundry Love come to our church, but that's not the point. What we're doing is building our church from the inside by serving this constituency of people. That's what we feel like our call, our mission is, to make a love-spreading difference in the community in which we're situated and beyond. There's a level of vulnerability that you have to engage in order just to walk in, because it's a little chaotic and it's pretty extroverted, and sometimes it's kind of scary in a good way. There's a lot of love in the room, but there's also a lot of courage in the room too. What we've seen is our church has just really come alive with this opportunity to serve in our community in a very practical way. It's just a really right time for communion, for the development of like real deeper relational intimacy that you see taking place in the middle of a laundromat in Venice Beach on a Monday night. One of the themes that we adopted early on at FADS is people are the new program. Any church of any size could pull off a Laundry Love. People have come to volunteer at Laundry Love, and then they've said like they've made relationships with people and have helped facilitate them finding housing. So the idea is that the program exists so that it would be an incubator for more personal, love-spreading, difference-making mission in our own individual lives. I feel very strongly that this is the modern day foot washing. You know, this is where we have an opportunity to get down and engage people on a level where they need to be served. There's this real development of connection and relationship that goes back and forth. And for some reason, washing machines and dryers really bring people together.
Yeah. There's some pictures from around the country of various Laundry Loves. This one on the right is Tommy Dillon down at St. Margaret's in Baton Rouge, and they have a banner because they do it pretty much once a month. So if you look at the list, there's all kinds of things on here. There's community gardens, there's labyrinths, there's farmers markets. This is a labyrinth that I built in my garden before. I went to Israel about 20 years ago, and I came back and built a Jerusalem garden. This is before I moved to Austin. And then started collecting rocks to make a labyrinth. And a friend of mine decided that she was going to send me a whole pallet of Colorado River rocks. My adult children goes, Mom, I can't believe you're going to build a labyrinth in our, it's the side garden of this beautiful home that we lived in. And they said, people don't think you're crazy out there walking in circles. But literally, I taught my first grandchild how to walk it without messing with the rocks. And it stayed there for a long time and grew lichen over it. And when I moved to Austin and sold the house, the people didn't want it, so I took some of the rocks with me. But we have sacred spaces. Oh, so John Manel, New Jersey, every year they sell pumpkins. And so every year they do this, and they build a labyrinth on the grounds of the church. And John puts out the information, come buy a pumpkin from us and walk the labyrinth while you're at it. So we have sacred spaces, though, in our churches and around. I didn't take any pictures out here this morning, but just having places that that people in the community can just come and sit, and various churches have different venues for that. The other thing that's listed on here now is meetups, and I don't know if you've heard of meetups, but I want you to listen to what you can do with something called meetups.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Abbott, the rector of Holy Comfort.
Sorry, we have our Bluetooth is acting up. Let's see. Did she do it? There we go.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Abbott, the rector of Holy Comforter Episcopal Church in Spring, Texas, and I have a story to share with you about Invite, Welcome, Connect. Decided to step out into the community and to invite a larger community to church. I created a meetup using meetup.com at a local Starbucks. The meetup was called Saints, Sinners, and Skeptics, and I hope to draw in people from all religious stripes and no religious stripes. It was met with great success. A lot of people showed up. One of the people who showed up was a woman. She was burned out, she was freaked out, and she was confused by her past with Christianity. Those are her words. And she came to our meetup hoping to make peace with her past so that she could move on. Well, she met me, she met a couple of other Episcopalians here from Holy Comforter, and we invited her to come to Holy Comforter on a Sunday. She walked in our church doors, she was welcomed by our newcomer ministry, she felt at home. And then a little bit later on, we had her for a newcomer cafe. That's how we learned to connect with her. It turns out she can sing like a bird. She's now joined our choir. And she even sang in the Diocese of Texas annual council choir in February. So from the time she first darkened the doors of an Episcopal church in July, then she was singing in the council choir in February. It's a pretty amazing story, and she'll be confirmed in May when Bishop Fisher comes. It's also awfully providential. Her husband is an architect, and as we are going through a major building campaign ourselves, it's a huge blessing that they have walked in our doors. This could only happen using the Invite, Welcome, Connect method of stepping out into the community, welcoming those who come into our doors, and then connecting them to the life and to the ministries of the church.
There you go. So meetups. So I pulled it up last night. I usually wait till I get somewhere, and I pulled up meetups in St. Louis, and there's tons of them. So meetups is active. It's one of those things that it is possible to do. You probably couldn't do it in Natchez, Mississippi, but you could do it here in St. Louis. The next thing on this list, but let me go back 1 second. If you look at the creative ways to invite your local community, and you look down the list about 3/4 of the way down, it says community fellowship offerings, wine study, and Bible tasting. Now, y'all, that became a real popular thing. And our youth minister, who actually turned into a priest, he wound up doing this at the churches where he went. And you would have those in people's homes. And somebody lead, wine study and Bible tasting. Anyway, I thought it was clever, and it was just something that really became popular. The next thing on the list is community, and I want you to look at the checklist. It says your church's neighbors. Do you know them? Do they know you? And on the next page, local community groups, that you partner with these groups, and the civic involvement. So here's the thing about this section on community. I pulled up a couple of pictures from your website. It's like this section is really important, and for you here, at this church, who are you known? What are you known for in this community in Ladue? What is this church known for? Who are you known to be? What are you, and the reason I have this on here about community is for a long time, I was there at St. Stephen's for 10 years. And I never once went over, there was a little strip center near the church. And I never went over and introduced myself to those business owners, got to know them, invited them to church. So as I've taken this out, it's like, who do you have around here? And I don't know, I can't remember from 11 years ago. It's like you had a school or something. It's like, and so if you're in a neighborhood, if you went up to anybody around, what would they say if you asked them about this church? Community involvement too. I was in the Rotary for a long time, and we had a huge Rotary club, 350 members. And I was a business owner when I became Episcopalian. So Patrick had said, you stay in the Rotary, because he didn't want to go to Rotary every Wednesday. And it turned out to be a real blessing. So especially, when I talk to clergy who are coming in and to a church for the first time, I say, get involved in the community. And because it's so important for your church. And then the last big piece of this invite checklist is communication. And I am totally not a website. We've got all kinds of stuff on our website about digital welcome and how to do that. But one of the first things I look for on websites, and I looked for it on your website here, is just pictures of people and pictures of children and pictures of people engaged in things. And so it's really important that that you have things on your website, even if you're a little bitty church, that you have pictures of things that you're involved in. The local media here is another thing, because local media are always looking for something interesting, and the Episcopal Church is always doing something interesting and weird, right? And so make sure that you have your local media contacts. But then the website, newsletter, social media, as I've gone through, technology has changed so much. Last year, in 2024, there were 7.2 billion smartphone subscriptions. Now that one on the right is my father, who, before he passed away 12 years ago, my sisters bought him an iPhone, and it was not to talk on the phone. He just wanted to look at it for all the pictures and videos from his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So phones, as you know, just take a look at this. Can y'all see it? And it's true, if you're ever walking through an airport, I didn't have this problem when I arrived in St. Louis yesterday, but it's really true that we are attached to our phones. The next video I'm going to show you is on social media, and it's an old video, but it's still pretty relevant. I don't have the new statistics from it. But what I used to say a long time ago, and this video, it doesn't matter if we don't have the sound, but yes, maybe it does. Anyway, I used to say to clergy when I started doing this so many years ago, clergy, if you don't have to be on social media, but your church needs to be. So when the pandemic happened, it was really important that the churches were on. And it keeps the church in front of people. It's a free way to communicate. And so this little video, I just want you to watch carefully. So I was in Nebraska. The Diocese of Nebraska was so big, they asked me to do this workshop on a Friday night and a Saturday. And after the workshop was done on the Saturday, these two people came up to me and said they had a story to tell me. So once again, I handed them my iPhone. And this time they walked out to their car and listened to what they had to say.
Hi, I'm Liz Easton. I'm the canon to the ordinary for the Diocese of Nebraska.
Hi, I'm Scott Barker, the ordinary bishop of the Diocese of Nebraska.
And we just left an Invite, Welcome, Connect weekend-long meeting. And Mary has asked us to talk a little bit about something that we do to help the diocesan office invite and connect with folks throughout the Diocese of Nebraska.
Right. So
And this is it, pretty much.
This is it. After every Sunday visit, possibly to Greater Nebraska, we'll turn on Facebook Live on the phone as we're driving the truck on the way home, and
we talk about our visit. We have 53 churches in the Diocese of Nebraska. We visit each one every year. It's the most fun and joyful part of our ministry, and we often remark that we wish that parishioners throughout the diocese could ride along with us. So Facebook Live is super easy. It's right on the front page of your Facebook page. You click live and your camera starts rolling and people can interact with you and ask questions and you can answer them. And then it saves it on your Facebook page and it's shareable. So it's been great. And almost each video that we've done, surprisingly to us, has had a reach of like 1,000 unique views, which is incredible for a little diocese like ours.
exactly where I was going. If little Nebraska can pull that off, imagine what could happen elsewhere in our wonderful church.
And the best part for Nebraska and for everyone else is it's totally free.
We hope you enjoyed your Invite, Welcome, Connect. We were deeply touched. It was
Awesome.
a grace. Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, thanks, Mary.
So just one little bit of levity. I was in St. Martin's in Williamsburg, Virginia a while back. And this was on their Facebook page. Right. Okay, so I'm going to give you some instructions now. It's 20 till 11. This is what I'm going to ask you to do. You have Post-it notes at your table. And what I'm going to ask you to do is this. I want you to, at your table, if you've got introverts and you need to have a little quiet time, do that first, because I've been warned through the years that sometimes, introverts take a little while to kind of process. If you can do that if you'd like, for people to kind of think about it. But I want you to think about the things that you've heard from me so far around invite. We're going to do this just invite idea generating time, and this is a really important part of this work. It's kind of coming up with the ideas that you've heard just on invite that you would like to try here at St. Peter's or at the other churches that are represented here today. And just ideas, and I'll put like one Post-it idea to a Post-it and just jot them down, and things you want to try. And as I shared with the clergy, if the clergy feel like they need to kind of move and get up and do something else and walk around or whatever, sometimes we don't want to look at the clergy, because this is all about coming up with ideas and let the ideas just pop. And don't think about and ask, can we afford this? Can we do this? Let's just try this. This is really just coming up with the ideas. Or taking a ministry that you've done before and you want to revamp it and try something new. And this is about just kind of like little baby think tanks where you're just kind of popping the ideas. And I'm going to be walking around to making sure that you're going on this. We'll be doing this for about 20 or 30 minutes, and then we'll have lunch. And then we'll come back and we'll do, so you can take this at your break time, but also a real time of coming up with ideas. So go at it.